Wanna know the name? Devil May Cry.
Let me just start by saying that Dante, Trish, and Lady are three of my favorite monster hunters besides Blade and Winston Churchill. That being said, they should not have been in this game. Devil May Cry 3 was a shifting point for the DMC franchise. After the first game's comparatively subdued, still finding its footing feeling story, and the second game's helicopter, the creative team had plenty of time to figure out just how close to a heart attack they wanted to give their audience. Dante's Awakening has quite legitimately one of the best written narratives in all of gaming. It quite intentionally presents major elements of itself as hey diddle diddle and on the nose because that's the way Dante views the world. In the beginning, you're inclined to expect a kick-ass ride where you fight Blue Dante and save the world, and granted, you do those things, but you also watch a woman so disgusted at her own blood that she would risk what little of her own life was left for revenge learn how to accept help. You watch your only remaining family member spiral deeper and deeper into a self-created pit of destruction and mistrust, lusting after the unachievable power to never be hurt again. And you watch Dante learn how to care. After such an incredible work of art, a sequel had to be highly anticipated. There was no way to avoid it, but I think the DMC team realized that these characters' stories were done. If they wanted to even come close to reapproaching the quality they just had, they'd need something new. Enter Shasta Dante. A few minor problems though. See, we can't focus the main conflict on Nero's arm because 3 already contains heavy themes about one's relationship to their bloodline. So what do? Sideline it, make it a love story. Man versus society. Okay, so he lives in a religious city and is in love with a devout follower, so the arm could be a serious tool of awakening for him. Sure, they worship Sparta, who is a demon, but you know how intense religious fanaticism doesn't necessarily lend itself to logic. Sounds great, except ooh, the arm's actually only going to be a problem for as long as it takes the love interest, who by the way is about as interesting as spit, to inevitably forgive him, so 8 seconds? So not much emotional depth there either. Well, what about the villains? Are they compelling? I think. The majority of the narrative complexity comes from the fact that Nero and Kyrie were unknowingly members of the Evil Order of Swords, which is a goldmine for story, but they truly couldn't be less perturbed to find out. They're both chiefly concerned for the other's safety above all else, and the fact that the only home they've ever known was secretly trying to open not 1 but 4 individual portals to hell barely makes top 3 most important things to them, which would have been fine if they'd put more chalk into the game as a love story, but they're both already at the point where they love each other so much nothing short of the rapture could come between them. It was at this point in the process I can only imagine it must have dawned on them just how many players they were going to lose out on by not having Dante in the game, so they made him playable. For 7 out of the 20 total missions, wherein you play every previous level and fight all the same bosses, but in reverse and give him little to no involvement in the story. Ironically, the story could have been markedly stronger if Dante had been able to act as a mentor figure for Nero, filling the role that Dante and Virgil had grown up without. However, a similar and arguably more impactful effect could have been achieved solely with characters created for the game, had they been used correctly, which they were not. Not to mention the Lady and Trish, who are literally in the game for 3 total cutscenes, including the ones added in the special edition, are only here to show off the jiggle physics. Actually, 6 cutscenes if you include Little Miss gave the bad guys one of the most powerful weapons in the world to seemingly no end other than advancing the plot. But despite all of that, it is still some of the most fun I've had in a video game, admittedly in no small part to Dante. It's just so entertaining to watch him quintuple backflip his way through his really very grim reality. They do their best to give Nero cool scenes too, and he does have some cool moments, but he's just not skilled enough to match Dante's theatrics. He comes close, but he always either gets bodied or has to use his big arm, and big arm is unfortunately just not as cool as the D-Man being himself. And Nero doesn't even kill any of the bosses. Dante sweeps in at the end to steal his kills and all the devil arms. Being stuck with nothing but his starting gear means all the variety available in Nero's combat comes from unlockable moves and his EX gauge, and while the Devilbringer does have some Billy Berserk animations, gameplay wise you hit B and the enemy either explodes or leaves you about as satisfied as if you inhaled. The EX gauge again is cool, but using it effectively feels a bit like trying to text while driving. It's efficient, but you feel like one person pretending to be conjoined twins. Although, grain of salt, I haven't been able to multitask since 2012. Nero's kit being limited so seriously limits the skill ceiling and variety in his gameplay. Basically every fight goes the same. Streaker Devilbringer to get in, then one of your 4, really 3 combos, Devilbringer pull into Devilbringer grab, high roller, air combo, slam, grab, and if they're not dead by then, repeat. Dante, on the other hand, has 4 styles from the previous game, all of which completely change the way you play, and that you can now swap between at any moment. 3 melee weapons and 3 guns to choose from, all of which you can swap between at any moment, and all of his attacks from the previous games. It's interesting switching from Nero to Dante and feeling just how much slower Chest Wound is to get around. You really get spoiled by the Devilbringer, and readjusting to open sternum is more stinger, trickster, gun, drive, round trip focus gameplay can take a little getting used to. Fortunately, the game makes you play this dumbass wrong door level to give you plenty of time to get reacquainted. Having only 7 missions to play around with aortic arrhythmia and his nearly endless combo potential is really disappointing, and the game would have been vastly more enjoyable were Nero allowed to win the Devil Arms instead of the Red King, who is red because he's covered in blood from being stabbed in the chest. So considering all of that, why? is it's still so much fun. You see, there's an intrinsic truth to the hack and slash genre that it's crucial any game understand, and if it does, it simply will be good. Hitting things is fun. Chief example, Lollipop Chainsaw. It's gotta be one of the clunkiest games ever made. Absolutely no synergy between any of your moves, painfully slow ability progression, and the Burger King toy of the video game industry, QuickTime events. All those sloppy design choices in hand, but let me tell you, there's no feeling quite as flash as watching 6 zombies lose their heads in a chainsaw confetti cyclone. Devil May Cry 4, with all of its sales anxiety and real, actual playing the same 20-minute levels but backwards, still manages to absolutely fucking ace the primal sensation a person gets when they swing a 40-pound piece of metal into another living creature. The improvements made to Dante's gameplay managed to bore even further down into the Mariana Trench that was his combo potential. Despite having relatively few weapons compared to 3, the ability to quick switch through all of your Devil Arm, Firearm, and style options means that for a practice player, chances that an enemy ever actually lands an attack against you get low enough to slip on. And Nero's combat style is pretty cyclical, but holy fuck, look at him go! Everything he does is so impactful. Playing as him feels like butterfly clicking a nuclear launch button. It just never gets old. The game's far from perfect, but holy jeez, there's some quality to be found here. I mean, had this game solely starred Dante, the gameplay would have been a straight upgrade from the last. But it doesn't. It stars Nero, and unlike Dante, they hadn't had 3 previous games to refine his combat. There's room for improvement for sure. I mean, there's some truly terrible enemies. It makes you fight every boss 3 times without changing them even slightly, and this fucking Monopoly minigame. But the foundation is so pure fucking concrete that it just hits like steel against somebody else's skull.